Hi, thank you all for being here. I hope you can hear me. And this is Anjali. I will be moderating the session for today. Thank you so much for all the participants that joined us so far and for all the speakers for gracing us with your presence. I have a couple of things that I wanted to go over before we start for today. We request you all to keep yourself muted and write your questions if there are any directly to the host or co-host on the chat box. We will be addressing your questions later if time permits. Um, I will be starting with introductions first. So let me introduce myself. I am Anjali Katare. I work as a planner and economic analyst at Landwise Advisors in Boston, as well as at Development Strategies in St. Louis. I'm passionate about research, and I have a long-term relationship with Texas A&M University and their extension program, for which I am currently assisting them with plan integration for resilience efforts. I'm also a co-founding member of Vastukul and currently serve as the program manager for them. I received my bachelor's in architecture from NIT Bhopal and my master's in urban planning from Texas A&M University, and I hope that I can go back to pursue a PhD in near future. And that's all about me. Okay, so we will start with the first speaker for today. So there are 7 speakers with us today that we will be featuring. One of these speakers is from United States, and she couldn't make it live to our session today. So we have pre-recorded her segment. So we will be playing that segment first, and then we will be moving on to all of our other presenters who are going to be presenting live to us and speaking to us from their respective locations all across the world. Really excited to have you all here. So let me introduce you to the first speaker. Her name is Joyce Simeon. She is an interdisciplinary multi-hazard research scientist and community capacity builder who currently studies as a doctoral candidate at Texas A&M University. Her degree is in urban and regional sciences with a focus on hazard reduction and recovery. She also has a bachelor's degree from Dillard University in biology with a minor in chemistry. So you can see the variety of work that she has done and variety of subjects that she studied. She is an urban planner by training and has also published the KAPS framework to train high risk communities. Her research interest focuses on bridging the gap across disciplines while exploring the intersectionality of hazards, race, and social justice. Her work is centered around developing methodologies that turn research into action to increase marginalized, multi hazard communities' ability to prepare, respond, and recover from disasters. We will be playing her segment next. Hi, Joy. We are very pleased to have you here as a speaker. And today we'll be just like going through a few questions that we want to share with our audience. And let's just start. Is that good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect. So the first thing that we want to ask you is to tell us how you reached where you are today, and simply just take us through your journey so far.
Yeah, so I became interested in environmental justice issues and planning at a very early age. I want to say I was about 7 or 8, and I just started learning about what was impacting my community. I grew up in a fence line community, meaning it has a lot of industries there. And then from there, I went to Dillard University in New Orleans, and then I went to Texas Southern University in Houston, and then I was at Texas A&M University getting a PhD. So I think my journey kind of started there, and then it has kind of got me at doctoral programs studying disasters.
That's awesome. So as you mentioned a little bit about where you grew up and your community, I would like to ask you if you believe that your background or upbringing or societal conditions impacted your journey, and if yes, then how?
Definitely. I think that was one of the finest turning points of what really shaped my career, especially in academia, because I don't think if I was exposed to chemical plants and, disasters at an early age, that it would have been of interest as an adult. One of the things that I think is important is really engaging with communities. And I started doing that from the time I was a kid, going to like policy meetings and things like that. So definitely it started there.
Can you please elaborate a little bit more about, about the community engagement part of what you do, and what all have you explored in that, academic, non-academic, everything?
Oh, you've only given me 6 minutes to talk about this, but I guess just to sum it up, so I've worked a lot with EJ communities or environmental justice communities, and so that's kind of where my research really started is working in communities, developing and helping nonprofits really increase their capacity to both respond and prepare for different disasters. And so I've worked hands on with multiple community organizations, and then now I'm working in a community looking at how they're being impacted by different disasters like COVID-19 and hurricanes and tornadoes and all things like that. So I think that's probably where the core of my work is as of right now. I'm excited because I have a book coming out on community engagement. So I'm really excited about that.
Congratulations, that's so great news. So basically, like, all of it, man-made and natural disasters, you're like looking at everything. That's great.
Yes, I do it all.
Okay, so the next thing that we wanted to ask you is, if, like, you can tell us a bit about a couple of the challenging instances in your life and how you overcame them, or like, how you overcoming them, if that's the case.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had a challenge this last week and a half, and it has to do with people underestimating you, especially as a female, especially as a minority. And it's interesting because everybody has their expectations of what they think should be this fine line that you travel. And I think when people look at me, I'm highly underestimated majority of the time that I've ever participated in anything. I think people underestimate me. But I think that was one of the biggest challenge is that when people look at me, it's not always that they see, oh my God, she's amazing. She can accomplish this or that. But it's more so it's like, okay, she can't speak like me, so let's discredit her. Or she doesn't look like me, so let's discredit her. And I think when we talk about women in power, it's crazy because we have to believe in ourselves so we can push ourselves past the point of where people don't believe in us. And I think that's something even just recently that I had to overcome and really fight back and say, you know what, no, I know what I'm capable of. I'm gonna accomplish whatever, even if you believe in me or you don't believe in me, I'm gonna do it anyways.
Yeah, I think this is something that, sort of like, I've heard about a lot of places and from a lot of people, and it is very upsetting to say that it is ageless. Like, I've heard this from younger generation, from young women. I've heard this from women who are like 40s and 50s, and this just never goes away. Hopefully, we can make a change. And yeah, I think there would be a time when people would stop underestimating women and women of color in, like, in general, and start looking at them in a more like wholesome and comprehensive way, like more than just their looks or just their, like, what they exude as like a person, more than their personality would be the one that shines through. Um,
And Anjali, it's so interesting that you said that because I think it's less about what we're capable of and what they think that we're not capable of, right? And what
right.
I mean by that is like people put their own insecurities and own burdens on others. So I think that's why it's really important as females to know who you are and whose you are and move accordingly to that, right? Because I think that the problem is people try to put boundaries and put you in a box, right? And I think they do that without because they have to live with their own set of limitations and they try to put it on other people. But I think we're in an era that it's time to break out of boxes, if you ask me.
Well, that is so true. And this kind of like, flows into what I was going to ask you next. And that was just
Yeah.
like, if you had a piece of advice for young women out there, especially the ones who are like, just starting college or are doing their bachelor's program or just starting like, their first job. Because I know that that's something like, we all were in a space where we felt like, are we enough? And listening to people who have been through that and who are doing like amazing things today, such as you, it would be a really good thing to come through. So if you have any advice.
My biggest advice right now is get out of the box. Don't let somebody trap you in the box. Don't put yourself in a box. Just get out of the box and look out of the box, right? And try to figure out ways that you can change the world because you can. I think for a little bit, I struggled with imposter syndrome of like, oh my God, I shouldn't be here because they're so great. But then you have to realize those people are old and tired, okay? So realizing that it's time for me to step out and I'm a boss, because I'm a female boss, and that I can accomplish whatever I set my mind to is my biggest advice to anybody. Is like develop that mantra that I'm the boss. Like, what do you mean? I'm the boss. And don't like when you apply for jobs or apply for things, don't be afraid to interview them while they're interviewing you because the biggest thing is you don't want to work for anybody who's not going to reach your standard. And you need to realize that your standard is out of the box. Get out of the box. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
That's actually really great advice. And in the recent times, something that I have learned through all, like, the last 2 years is something similar, that do not limit yourself because the things that you can do are limitless. So
Yes.
thank you so much for that advice. And I think this is where we're going to end our interview formally. And let me know if you would be willing to have like comments from the respondents sent to you, so that like you can look at it, or if you would like to just like look at the comments that we receive. So yeah.
Definitely, just let me know.
Okay, sounds perfect. Thanks, Joy.
No problem.
Thank you. So that was Joy, and I hope that you all learned something and about her journey, about what she's been doing, and a little bit more about how it can help you in your journeys. So now we will move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker today is Patricia Harsney. She is a Budapest based creator from Hungary. As a contemporary jewelry designer, she primarily explores the boundaries of wearing, the relationship among body and objects, and the concept of jewelry. In addition, her work involves creating and exploring with materials that are considered unusual in their basic genre of jewelry, like everyday objects of everyday use. By reinterpreting the functions of the objects around us, she seeks to find new roles for them and compose them into a system. With her current research, she is seeking a personal path between art and design. Her work is best understood in the context of conceptual art and critical design. I hope you enjoyed the small video that we shared of Patricia's work. And now I would like to have Patricia with us and interview her for the next segment.
Hi,
Hi,
thank you for the introducing.
hi, Patricia. So, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you
I'm
for
a little bit tired, but I'm fine, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. So I would like to start today's session with asking you to tell us a little bit about your journey and just like how you reached where you are today and the choices you made so far to be where you are.
Okay, so um, first of all, I came from a small village in close to Balaton, Lake Balaton in Hungary. And then I started to study art at age 14. And then I started to work with jewelry. I studied mostly the classical technologies of jewelry. And I always felt some kind of interest in everyday objects and unusual things in jewelry. And when I was in Erasmus in Valencia, then I started to collect different materials from the street. I had a project when I had to research an artist, a contemporary artist, Mark Dion, and I started to work with this kind of materials which he used. And I collected different things from the streets, from the beach. I found very, very interesting objects. And since that time, I came home and I keep continue to work with this kind of objects. And when the pandemic started, I moved back from Budapest to my small village, and I started this diary. I made jewelry every day, but not with classical technologies, with only using objects from my house, from my surroundings. And that's where I started quarantine jewelry. And this is the video. In the video, you saw some pieces from this series. And yeah, I still working with this kind of techniques and objects. Yes. So this is my research now.
That's so interesting. Yes, she has a page called Quarantine Jewelry, which you can all visit on Instagram. And so let's move on to our next question. And I wanted to ask you if you believe that your background, upbringing, or societal settings impacted your journey. And if yes, and you would like to share with us, it's completely okay if you don't want to share it. We can skip the question.
Okay. So I believe yes, of course. And if I just see my works, I can see how it impacted childhood memories or my interest to this kind of objects from my childhood. And I also believe that if I change a place, then it's also impacted to my art. So yes.
Thank you for sharing that. The next question that we wanted to ask you was along the way, what do you think were the most challenging times in your life? And if you can share what helped in kept keeping you going through those times.
Mhm. So my most difficult times, I think, in my art, it happened because emotions are very much involved to my artistic practice. And for example, in universities, our projects are more task orientated and not process orientated. And for me, sometimes I need more time with one process, with one task. And I had to accept that for me, these kind of works are different than in universities. And I had to accept that sometimes I won't finish one project or one task in, for example, one semester. I need more time for that. And I had a lot of stress because of that and a lot of hard times. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So, the last thing that we wanted to share with our audience was if you have a piece of advice, especially for the young women out there, and what would that be?
I think the most important that don't be afraid of risking, and don't be afraid of like of of the unknown, and to accept your decisions. So don't be afraid of your decisions. For me, that's the one of the most important. Yes.
Thank you, Patricia. Especially with the times that we are living in, I think that's a wonderful advice. That don't be afraid of the unknown and keep exploring. Don't be afraid of the risks you have to take, because they will certainly be rewarding. Thank you, Patricia. It was
Thank
wonderful to
you.
talk to you. Our
Thank you.
next speaker today is architect Sakshi Jain. Fascinated by the concept of ideas being transformed into reality, Sakshi started her journey in the field of architecture. She then went on to build her understanding of modern construction techniques and construction management at NICMAR Pune. After gaining some practical experience working as a project manager, she co founded her own firm, the Design Charrette. The Design Charrette is a women led and owned firm established in 2017. The four co founders, amazing women by the way, are also longtime friends and just knew that it was now or never. So they went along and co-founded their firm. The four of them are Sakshi, Apurva, Astha, and Ajanta. The design charrette takes up projects under the umbrella of architecture and interior design. They provide design consultancy, project management consultancy, and design build services. In the construction industry, they saw that there is a contrast between design and final product, and their idea was to bridge this gap. So they have an experienced team that excels in design process, site execution works, and intricate design details that makes for a successful and satisfactory final product. Hi, Sakshi. We are very glad to have you here, and I would like to invite you for the next segment.
Hi, thank you for that lovely introduction. It's
Thank-
exciting to see your own work at certain point.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Let me quickly run to the first question that we have for you today. Same as the other speakers, I would like to ask you to tell us a little bit about your journey so far and how you reached where you are today and the path you forged for yourself.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to mention that when I speak about this journey, I also speak about the journey of three other females, as you like just mentioned, Astha, Purva, and Ajanta. So I'm very delighted to like share our journey. So I grew up in Bhopal, the beautiful city of lakes in the center of India. So and most of my study academic part of the life has been there itself. So I studied architecture, like you mentioned. I was intrigued by the idea of creating your own things, having something of your own. So I pursued architecture. Then, as you've already mentioned it, like I wanted, we often see like when designers, a lot of times a designer would mention that was my vision, but that is not what exactly has been created, because a lot of people are involved in the process and a lot of process go on between these things. So what we wanted to have is to have individuals who actually have the idea of the entire process, so that whatever vision we are starting with, we end up with the same thing. So after architecture, I pursued advanced construction management because we wanted to do design and build projects. So I pursued that. Then I worked for a while, because as much as it is important to do your own thing, it is also very important to equip yourself with the right knowledge and understanding of how things go on in a particular field. So I did that for a while. I think all four of us did that for a while, but after a point we kind of started missing the creative freedom that comes with doing your own thing. And we just felt that there wouldn't be a perfect time to just come back, or there wouldn't be a time where we would be like, okay, now we have enough of everything and now we can start. So we just knew it was now or never. So I think 3 years after graduation and 1 year of working, I think we all decided that it was time to start our own thing. So we came back and then we began. Initially, we did not have a lot of projects or anything of concrete, but I think we all just had that faith in ourselves. Ki if we, consistently and persistently move towards our own thing, it would happen. So we came back to our near to our hometown. So we wanted to be closer to our families too. So we came back here and then we started our own journey. And
That's beautiful. Uh, so the next thing that I would like to ask you is if you can share with us how your upbringing and your societal settings impacted your journey, and how that sort of shaped what happened thereafter.
So I think all throughout my life, since the time of from the childhood itself, I have been surrounded by very confident women, like my cousin sisters or my friends. They all are individually very confident and women who believe in themselves. And especially my mom, like a very confident woman who knows what to do, when to do, very clear in her thoughts. So I think when you're surrounded by that kind of people, it automatically, grows into you too. So I had that kind of faith that whatever I set my mind on in my life, I can do that. I did not feel that kind of limitation in my life ki anything that is if that kind of limitation where I feel ki something is not possible or that kind of thing. So I think that helped me a lot. And then in the college time, when we collaborated, I think on small projects itself, we kind of felt ki we compensated for each other's weakness and complemented each other's strength. So we just knew ki we were stronger as a team. And we all know when a woman, finds her strength and then she heads on a path, it's something different. And I think when four women just come together and they're complementing each other's weakness, it was amazing.
That sounds wonderful. And yes, this goes on to say how much the support and encouragement from other people, especially women around us, uplifts us. So that's really beautiful to see and hear from you. The third question that I would like to ask you is to share about a few challenges, maybe the most recent challenges you faced, and if that made you doubt yourself or on your journey. We all have that sometimes, but the most important part of this question is for our audience is to know that how you overcame it. So yeah, that would be my next question to you.
Construction or architecture field is a little bit male oriented field. So when you see a new woman or a group of women coming to that field, that automatic trust from the client, or not just the client, from the contractors and the entire team does not come just like that. So I think there was a lot of apprehension in turnkey projects when we just began to, hand over such projects to an all woman team. But I think your work is going to speak for yourself. Do not, it cannot be like, you cannot just convince them there and then ki we can do it or something like that. You just have to have the right persistence, patience, and dedication towards your work. Have faith in your own skills. Do your thing. Let your work speak for yourself, and that just helps. And I think another on a personal note, I think our biggest struggle was when because in an Indian context, it's assumed that once you get married, you'll be moving to the guy's place or wherever he is located. So when we began, it was like, how are we going to manage it? It's four females in the group, and what if all of us move to different locations? And we need to have a strong base somewhere. But I think that worked out for us because we just knew communication is the key, and we have set up systems. We have always maintained good communication, and that we were able to overcome that too.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And the last question for you is if you would like to share a piece of advice for our listeners and especially for young women out there.
Yeah, I think just follow your own pace. I personally feel ki do not draw comparisons with anybody, because there is no one with the exact same circumstances or the exact same skills that you have. So you need to have your own path. Just do your thing, have that faith in yourself, just equip yourself with the right knowledge and gear up and just move on to that journey. And what I do is, anytime I have to make a decision in life that I'm not sure about, I just think what is something I would regret more, and then I decide accordingly. So just do that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a wonderful piece of advice. Um, Thank you, Sakshi, for sharing your journey and for sharing your thoughts with us. This was a great experience for all of us. Let's move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker today is Alina Patishi. Alina is the director and founder of EP Architects. She holds bachelor's and master's with honors from the National Technical University of Athens and a master's of architecture and planning at the Architectural Association School of Architecture in London. She has been recipient of numerous awards and honorable mentions throughout her academic journey and her professional career. She continues this streak by receiving several awards for EP Architects Design, Architectural Review, RTF, 8th Biennale of Young Greek Architects, etc. are some of those awards recently been bestowed on her. And she has given lectures for her work in conferences in Cyprus and abroad, most notable being the 8th Biennale of Young Greek Architects, Perspective Conference in Italy, and ACIA India. EP Architects is an architectural design firm offering services in the field of architecture and interior design, providing state of art design inspired by cultural and environmental parameters and innovative technological advancements. Each project is approached in a visionary way as a territory transformed by the parameters of urban and physical environment, program and interior requirements, materiality, and tectonics. EP Architects gained considerable international attention when Footbridge at the T. Papadopoulos Avenue in Paphos received the Special Judges Recognition Award at the 2013 MIPIM Architectural Review Future Projects Awards. Other awards in the competition, like Rethinking the Future, have distinguished the practice's work from the social housing project in Polemidia, which is a first award in an international competition of Cyprus Land Development Corporation. Congratulations, Elena, and we are very happy to have you with us today. I would like you to invite for the next session.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi. Glad to see
Yes,
you.
sorry. I started speaking and then I realized that I was muted. So thank you very much for the invitation. I want to thank both Zeynep and Vastukul School of Innovation for this invitation. Yes.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us. We're very excited to have you. Can we just move on to the questions now?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. So the first question that I would like you to address is the same as other speakers, to tell us about your journey so far, how you reached where you are today, and the choices that you made that have led you to where you are as in your professional journey, and if you would like to address that.
Yes. Well, first of all, architecture is more than a profession to me. So designing, thinking about geometries and space, painting as a young child was an expression. But I realized very early on that improving skills is as important as the things I mentioned before. Also, it's important to mention that my mother is an architect, so I grew up in a place where design architecture was something important to us. But actually, she tried to warn me several times about the profession, and actually, she didn't encourage me to pursue this profession. Only when I was 100% sure and made my choice, she stand by me, but she was very realistic and told me about all the difficulties that will come in the future. So it was a decision that I was very conscious when I made this decision in order to pursue this profession. And so knowing the difficulties of this profession, I have never believed that I will make my own business. I paved my academic path in order to work for another office, actually, abroad. But due to the economic crisis of 2011, I started doing competitions. I received a position to work in that office, but actually they fired 100 people at that time. So I decided to do competitions, and some awards in those competitions led me back to Cyprus, where I started EP Architects. Well, so another experience that helped me to in this journey is it was my thesis in the university. I did my first degree at the National Technical University of Athens. So my thesis was more like an experimentation, although it was design oriented. It was versatile enough in order to generate multiple morphological outcomes. And I think this really inspired me in my journey as an architect. And this experimentation. And also the people like professors and a specific professor that believed
Ho appena
in...
fatto degli stories spiegando tutta la mia
Hello?
Sorry, yes, you can speak.
Not interrupted.
Yes.
Actually, when I was trying to make my mind about my master's degree, this professor, which was very strict usually, told me, you shouldn't worry, you only need this master degree to lose weight. That's what he told me. You shouldn't worry about because you're going to do very well. So what I want to say is that men and women that we have around us, professors or classmates, etc., influence and affect our confidence. Yep.
Thank you for sharing that. There are a lot of good pointers in what you shared, especially about heading into a profession, knowing its realities, knowing about the good side of it, but also the practical hard parts. So I think that was one of the takeaways that I had from your segment so far. And the second about how the surroundings and people around us shape us. So I think that covers the second question that I had for you. But let's move on to the third one, which is sharing with us some of the challenges that you faced and what kept you going through those times, through those challenging times.
Well, the construction industry is difficult for a woman. Actually, I remember being pregnant on site, on the construction site, for a huge development, and I was the only woman, and I had to give directions, and there were at least 100 men, either working or civil engineers, etc., on site. So you really need to be calm and consistent, and don't be afraid. There are many preconceived notions about several aspects of about women. You need to expect these several problems that might come, but you really shouldn't lose confidence. So yes, construction industry is one of these challenging instances in general. Also, it's interesting to discuss about distinctions and awards. Even if you receive these awards, some people might underestimate you, and it depends on the preconceived notions that they have about women and their social settings. So even if you receive different comments, and you just need to, if you know who you are, you shouldn't worry, and just continue working with the confidence. And
Oh, Alina, you're muted.
And also I've noticed that mistakes made by men sometimes are a given in our work, and events are twisted in order not to reveal them. So, but if a woman makes a mistake, it's a huge deal. Just be confident, and if you believe in what you do, and you love your work, you're gonna make it.
Thank you for sharing that. There's so much that we heard today that sort of speaks about other people viewing our capabilities and limiting our capabilities in their worldview, their preconceived notions, more than women underestimating themselves. I feel like
Yes.
after hearing all of you speak, there are going to be more women who believe in themselves and believe in the work that they're doing. So I'm really happy that we had you all on our panel today for sharing your journeys with our viewers. The last question that I would like to ask you is if you would like to share a piece of advice for young women, something that you practice daily in your own life or in your own professional studio and work environment.
Well, most important is not to be afraid to initiate discussions, and don't take responsibilities. Yes, don't be afraid about responsibilities. Yes.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
There's not a thing. Perfection is not a reality. You know, you're gonna do mistakes, learn from them, and continue working.
That's wonderful. One of my mentors very recently told me that trying to achieve 100% of something is not always as efficient as making it to the 90% and keep working on the 10% for as long as you want to. But push it to the 90% and fly with it. So I think that applies here. Like don't aim for perfection, but aim for just like trying and not being afraid of stepping out. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, because women are always on the spot, and we are wired to do our best because we are afraid for mistakes and failure for several reasons, and we shouldn't.
Yeah, that's actually nice. Thank you so much. Okay, we will move on to our next speaker for the day. And our next speaker is Gargi Mishra. Gargi is a PhD fellow at CEPT University, Ahmedabad, India, for the DST NWO supported Water for Change project, post-academic training in the multidisciplinary domain of urban and regional planning. Her research interest grew deeply towards the urban wash sector, which is water, sanitation, and hygiene. This led her to pursue PhD research on the broader thematic area of water-sensitive spatial planning for secondary Indian cities. Her work focuses on the case of Bhuj and Bhopal. This action-oriented research explores the opportunity for mainstream aspects of water-sensitive urban planning and design for the rapidly urbanizing secondary Indian cities. Hi, Gargi. Thank you for being with us today, and I would like to invite you now for our next segment.
Thank you so much, Anjali. Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
We're very glad to have you here. So if you would like to share with us a little bit about your journey and how you sort of like went into academics, what encouraged you and what pushed you to forge the path that you forged for yourself.
Sure. So, it may sound a bit amusing now if I speak about it, that when I began, so when I cleared my plus two examination, I entered the domain of urban planning accidentally. It wasn't something which I had planned or I, always wanted to be, but now I can definitely say that it was one of the best things that happened to me. So I accidentally ended up filling the form of architecture planning examination at the all India level. We used to call it AIEEE at that time. I'm sure many of the Indian candidates here today would know about it. And I cleared the exam, and I then started exploring what urban planning is, what are the career prospects, and there was little information available, to be very honest. But whatever I could get through, I found it really interesting, and I decided to enter the development sector. And then that was the turning point, and then I never looked back, and my career path uh, uh, forged itself. So when I was doing my bachelor's in planning from School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal, I I understood how multidisciplinary and how wide planning is. And during my thesis, which I did on sanitation, urban sanitation for Indore city, I developed a deeper interest in this particular sector. And then I thought, okay, why not to do a specialization in infrastructure planning, because basic services is something which is a pressing issue for developing countries, especially India and especially secondary Indian cities. Then I did my master's in urban and regional planning, majored in infrastructure planning from CEPT University. And I had this amazing mentor, amazing guide, who's also my PhD guide at present, Professor Mona Iyer. Then she again was a very inspiring figure for me in this journey. And so I did my then master's thesis in participatory water resource management for Bhuj and Bhopal. And then I worked with the Center for Water and Sanitation, where I explored urban sanitation in small towns of Maharashtra state. And then finally, this opportunity of pursuing PhD for the Water for Change project, which is a collaboration between Netherlands and India, appeared, and I applied for it, and I was fortunate enough to get through. So that was again a major point, and it was really difficult for me at that point to decide whether I should be pursuing a full-time PhD or not, because it's a big decision, full-time PhD. I'm sure some of people know, but yeah. So and here I am today, 2 years done the PhD. Let's see how long it will take now.
Well, I hope you the best for your PhD journey. And moving on to the next question, what I would like you to address is what were the most challenging instances, maybe one most recent or the one that you would want to highlight, and what kept you going in those times?
So planning, architecture, design, I think these are very unconventional or not very popular fields. Even so, when I entered urban planning and while I was pursuing it, people would ask me, okay, what is urban planning? What are you doing? And it took an effort in explaining every individual what it meant. So that is something which problem which I faced a lot in the initial years. It made me doubt myself as well at a few points, that okay, it's should I even continue it or not. But I think it was purely my interest and passion that kept me going in that so the external factors did not influence me much. And because of my interest that grew completely in that, I continued it. So that was a. And I think the second one, as I mentioned earlier, that in the beginning when I decided to pursue B plan, there were very few platforms that would offer counselings or that would offer guidance in this field. But now there are many. So Vastukul is one of them. So I think it's a great initiative. And now people would get much more clarity in all the the diverse courses that are now offered not just in India but even abroad, in the development sector. So that kind of guidance is something that was lacking for me, but I think it's amazing that now there are so many opportunities. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That actually sets a lot of sort of like, good takeaways for us about mentorship, about knowing about your interests and persevering about it. The last question that I would like to ask you is to give a piece of advice for young women out there, maybe something that you practice or something that you abide by.
So, I think most one which I wanted to cover has already been covered more or less by all the speakers here, that be limitless, sky is the limit, you can do whatever you want. But other than that, I think, you have to have that perseverance, that patience. There will be a few trade-offs for sure, but never let those factors affect your decisions, your training, your profession. And just, I mean, if you have the support of your close family and friend circle, I think you're fortunate enough to literally anything you want, and uh, that's it. I mean, just do not give up on the dreams.
So for our speakers, I think the takeaway is to seek support and to just like keep persevering about what you want to achieve. Thanks, Gargi. It was wonderful to speak with you.
Thank you, Anjali. Thanks.
Our next speaker today is Mariana Martini. And let me introduce to you about her background and her work a little bit. With 10 years of interior design experience, the Brazilian from Rio de Janeiro, Mariana Martini, was always fascinated by the capacity spaces possess to be modified and designed. She graduated in architecture from Brazil. During her university years, she began working with a team of great architects, and in 2012, she opened her own studio in Rio de Janeiro. In 2014, after receiving an MBA in Architecture Office Management, she decided to move to Milan to attend the Master in Home Luxury Collection Design at the prestigious Istituto Marangoni. Right after, Mariana started working at Matteo Thun and Partners Studio, founded by one of the creators of the famous Memphis design movement and one of the largest and most recognized architecture studios in Italy. In 2020, she went back to Instituto Marangoni, but this time on the other side of the table as a tutor in interior design. After an intense period of work and learning in their interior design team, she felt that it was time to go back to having her own studio, this time in Milan, with her own methodology enhanced by the Italian know how. Recently, her studio won 4 architecture awards and also became Archi Products Milano ambassador. Being very present on social channels, Mariana has also become an ambassador for Young Women Network, the first association in Italy dedicated to the empowerment of young women. Hi, Mariana. We are very happy to have you here. And this celebration is definitely made multifold by your presence. I would like to address a
Thank
few
you.
questions to you.
Yeah.
The first question being the same, if you can tell us a little bit about your journey and about the choices you made to reach where you are today.
Yeah. My journey, it was working in 2 different countries now, and that was a big choice. But actually, sometimes, as many of you said, not everything goes as planned. So being flexible is also something that is very important. So I was flexible to this change of career, of path, that I thought I was always going to work in Brazil and be there with my family and everything. But it happened that I came to Italy and I didn't go back because here the doors started to open to me. And so my path was here. I would never think of doing something like this and be where I am today, but that's where I am, and I'm very happy for what I have accomplished so far.
Thank you for sharing that. The second question I would like to ask you is if you believe that your background, upbringing, and societal settings have impacted your journey, and if you would like to share with us how that happened.
Yeah, for sure. Our background is something that is always what we did it's the consequence. Now, what we are now is the consequence for how we have been behaving and what we did yesterday. So that's why today, being professor and everything, that's something that I notice. I always felt like we have to start things from today. And our history, now our story, actually, our story, and that's something that is very connected. And if we let, it really can make a big influence, positive or negatively. And I'm very glad that being Brazilian and everything I am and everything I lived so far, it made myself here and also gave me this DNA about here what I do in Milan. I didn't mention that before, and I didn't mention in my text, but I create interiors that we call urban tropical, because it's like the urban Milan and the urban side of Italy, which is Milan, mixed with the tropicality, let's say like this, from Brazil. So my tropical background, all the nature and everything is present in all my projects. So I would say as a background, that is a huge influence that I addressed and I embraced on my projects.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And if you would like to share any of the recent challenges that you faced, and if that made you doubt yourself or your journey, and how you overcame it.
Yeah, so as I was saying, the architect from Cyprus. Also, another to me, it was a very challenge when I became pregnant, because we women are the only one that can make the planet grow. Men cannot do that. We have this stuff, job to carry, to deliver new humans to this planet. But that's a very tough time for us, that we are workers. And then when is the best time? Like, I don't think there is ever a best time. So to me, a big challenge was to stop a little bit and say, maybe I should start planning when it's going to happen, because being as I am, very ambitious, but not in the good, bad sense, but ambitious to always want more, wants to grow. I never want to stop. I barely stop to eat because I don't want to lose time. So when I'm going to stop to have a baby? And that to me so far was like the biggest challenge, to accept that sooner or later, if I want to, because we're not obligated to have babies, that absolutely no, but the ones of us that want, when. And to me, a big challenge was to take this time and to understand if I could go back or not, because sometimes, because when you have it, you just go into deep into this new world, and it's like, oh my God, is my life ever going to go back to normal? And to adapt and to adjust to my new normal, being a mom, that was my big challenge, and that's something I'm still trying to overcome, and I'm balancing everything. That's a big challenge, but it's not impossible. So that's also something I say a lot in my social network, that it's not impossible. We just have to have help, and we need to be organized, and that's the way I'm doing. But that's so far, like, other than being in the site with men and everything, that's something we just can do it. But the maternity side of it, it's something that not a lot of us say, but that's a big thing to overcome.
Thanks for sharing that. This was a perspective where, like, one of our audience persons also asked in the Google Forms that, like, how to balance the work life and the personal life. And I think that goes on to say that it takes a lot, but it can certainly be done.
Mm-mm.
The last thing that I would like to ask you is to share a piece of advice to young women out there.
Yeah, Laura, not to be afraid of your future, not to plan that much, because life can trick you, can put you in another path. To don't give up, because that's a hard, like our profession is beautiful. We create a new future, we create new spaces, new houses, new stores, and but that's very also hard to get in and to create your DNA and to your style, and to, you never know if you're satisfied, if there's another job that is better than the other one. But the only thing is like, don't stop, don't stop. It's like Dory, the movie from Disney, don't stop swimming, just go, 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 because otherwise if you look if you think too much, not, don't think too much, work hard. And that's my main advice.
Thank you, Mariana. That's wonderful advice.
Hmm.
I would like to move on to the last speaker for the day, that is Zainab. Um, Let me introduce a little bit about Zainab. Zainab is a practicing architect based in Milan, Italy. She's currently an architect at Venti Novento, an architecture studio in the Lombardy region, Italy. She is also a teaching assistant at Politecnico di Milano, where she did her master's in architectural engineering, focusing on sustainable building technologies and the design of smart cities. She enjoys being involved in both the professional and academic worlds. Zainab joined Vastukul as a core team member about 6 months ago as program consultant, and we're thrilled to have her working with us to build a value-driven program. Thank you, Zainab, for being with us today and sharing your journey and your thoughts. I would like to start our segment with asking you the same question about telling us a little bit about your journey and about your choices that enabled you to be where you are today.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. This event means a lot to me, not only because I collaborate with Vastukul, because also being a woman in this field has a different meaning to me. And that's what I will speak about maybe. So I'm back to your question. So I'm a practicing architect, and the thing that means a lot to me is that coming originally from the Middle East, I grew up in a place that, although they really encouraged me to study and to go into this field, but maybe there were also other limitations, cultural limitations, especially when I wanted to travel and settle in different places and do all this. So I would like to say that was maybe a very big challenge that usually I do not speak about, but I really went through many different difficulties when it comes to this. And I think this has shaped a lot what I do now and what I will do later in the future. Makes me, of course, more determined. Although what I might be doing might seem maybe normal to some people, but maybe looking at what I had to go through was not normal at all.
Yes, that certainly speaks to the next question, that is how our background shapes us and how that shapes the choices that we make. So would you like to expand on that a little bit more about how your work is being influenced by your background and your upbringing and your surroundings?
Yeah, so although I may have had the choice to say I want to study architecture, I want to go, I don't know, maybe move to the capital to study, but later I think there were many challenges, mostly cultural, as to maybe going to live abroad and deciding to study more, because when I left to Milan, before that I used to work. So I already graduated and started to work in my own country. So I'm from Beirut. After that, I decided that no, I would like to study more and I would like also to live somewhere else. And that was culturally a bit difficult to accept. Of course, Middle East is very there are many different, let's say, approaches. And there's something more liberal and there's something more conservative, and I was on that side. So that was the challenge. But later, I just followed my calling and I said, no, I want to study more and I want to see different things. And I want I don't want to be like rooted somewhere, because I think as architects and people working in art, we have this spirit of freedom and of adventure, I would say. So I said, no, I want to go out and I want to also settle out of my country, and even just try to get as much inspiration and experience as I can.
Yes, thanks, Zainab, for sharing that with us. And the next question, you spoke about it a little bit already, but I would like you to sort of address how you are overcoming the challenges that you're facing. More so because your challenges are ongoing. They're something that are not going to go away, but um, they're attached to your identity, and you always have to sort of like keep building yourself and keep building your skills and your attitude to battle with those. So how are you coping with those challenges, and how do you um, overcome those? If you would like to expand on that a little bit.
Maybe it might sound a bit cliche, but all what the other wonderful ladies today maybe mentioned some of this. So maybe it's something of what everyone mentioned. So don't be afraid, of course. Be out of the box, if I remember correctly, and just be courageous in these things. But maybe it's even very easy to say, but when you put into practice, you put all these things together, that's going to be a big thing. But it's really all these like small things, like continue to grow. I have to continue to grow. When you continue to grow, let's say I will continue to teach you because I will continue to trying to do projects, to continue to do what I think is what I feel like doing. And then this just makes you stronger, and you are proving to the other side that maybe does not really agree with what you want, that you are unstoppable.
Thanks for sharing that with us. And I feel like what you're saying is correct. Like these are all really small things, but all together they can be sometimes overwhelming for us to make sure that we keep on pushing ourselves. But we should, because there's so much that we can do if we set our minds to. Thanks for sharing that with us, Zainab. And I'm really delighted that you were with us here today on the panel. This was probably one of the best Women's Day celebration that I've had in the longest time. And I am so happy that we were able to have you all today with us to share your thoughts, to share your journeys, and to celebrate this International Women's Day with us 2 days in advance. But still good and still jolly. So thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. I would like to thank all the speakers who accepted our invitations and shared their stories with us, gave us their valuable time on a Sunday. I would also like to thank all of the participants who stayed with us and listened to their journeys. I know that there are some questions that were submitted along with the Google Forms, and since we do not have time, we're already over time. So what we will be doing is just sending out those questions to all of our speakers and having them answer to whichever questions they feel are something that they are equipped to answer, and then sharing that email newsletter with all of our registrants. So that is something that we will be going to do, and look out for that email. I would also like to introduce you to the speaker for our next session. The speaker of our next session is Neha, who is an action researcher and works as a transition scholar for Water for Change project in India. Her work lies in the intersection of urban planning, urban water governance, and transition studies. Her interests revolve around understanding power dynamics around the distribution and allocation of water resources. She hails from Mumbai, India, and she will be our next speaker this month. Look out for that invitation and that announcement on our social media channels, and our website. So we will be inviting her for a next session, for a 1 hour session that we will be asking her to share her work with us and what she's doing and how that impacts India as well as the residents who she works for, mostly like in the cities that Water for Change project is working in. Thank you so much for being with us today. Feel free to go to our website and subscribe to Vastukul at the link provided in the chat box. Thank you so much, everyone. We were really glad to have you with us today. Thank you and have a wonderful Women's Day.
Thank you.